The emergency room was a whirlwind of chaos that morning. Nurses darted between beds, phones shrilled with urgent calls, and the sharp scent of antiseptic clung to the air. It was the kind of day where no one dared pause, not even for a heartbeat. But then, something stopped them cold. A hush swept through the room as every head turned toward the entrance. The automatic doors had slid open, unnoticed until now. Framed in the doorway stood a battered German shepherd, his massive frame taut with purpose. His fur was streaked with dirt and something darker, blood. But it wasn't his condition that froze the room. In his jaws, cradled with astonishing gentleness, hung the limp body of a little girl. Her pale pink dress was stained red, her blonde hair spilling across the dog's shoulder, her head lolling to one side. For a moment, no one moved. The dog stood perfectly still, as if he knew this was the only place that could save her. His deep brown eyes scanned the stunned faces, almost pleading for help. The only sound was the soft drip of water from his soaked fur hitting the tile floor. A nurse broke the spell, gasping as her clipboard clattered to the ground. "Oh my God, someone get a gurney," she shouted, her voice cracking with shock. Two doctors rushed forward, their faces shifting from confusion to horror as they saw the girl's pale face. One knelt, speaking in calm, practiced tones. "Easy, boy. We're going to help her." The German shepherd didn't budge, except to adjust his grip, ensuring the girl wouldn't slip. His eyes stayed locked on the nurse, as if he trusted no one until he was sure she was safe. Another nurse wheeled a gurney closer, hands trembling. Only then did the dog lower himself to his haunches, laying the girl down so carefully it seemed impossible he was an animal. Gasps rippled through the room as bruises along her arms and crusted blood at her hairline came into view. A doctor pressed fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. "She's alive," he whispered, but just barely. The team sprang into action, voices overlapping in a practiced rhythm of urgency. "Get her vitals," one barked. "Prep trauma room 3. We need fluids, oxygen, move." A nurse slipped an oxygen mask over the girl's face as her chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. Another started in 4, her hands steady despite the tremor in her voice. The German shepherd paced beside the gurney, whining softly each time someone touched the girl. A security guard muttered, "Someone get this dog out of here," but the nurse cut him off. "No," she said firmly. "He brought her here. Let him stay." The gurney's wheels squeaked across the tile as they raced the girl down the hall, the dog trotting alongside, ears pinned back, nose nearly brushing her small hand. At the trauma room's doorway, he stopped, peering inside as the team swarmed around her. Machines beeped in an anxious staccato. A doctor pressed on her abdomen, voice tight. "She's bleeding internally." The dog let out a low, aching sound, a plea that made everyone pause. As the trauma team worked behind the glass doors, the ER staff gathered in the waiting area, whispering in hushed, urgent tones. No one could process how a dog had carried a child into the hospital alone. A security guard with salt and pepper hair spoke up, brow furrowed. "I know that dog," he said slowly. "He was with search and rescue. Saw him on the news last year. Saved a family during that flood upstate." A nurse clutched her chest, eyes glassy. "You mean he's trained?" The guard nodded. "Trained and loyal. He must have tracked her." Outside the trauma room, the dog sat pressed against the glass, his breathing ragged from exertion, each inhale shaky. A janitor set down a dish of water, but he ignored it, his gaze fixed on the girl surrounded by doctors. No one dared move him. Every so often, he shifted to peer through a different angle of the window, ensuring she was still there. In that sterile hallway, even the busiest staff felt something tighten in their chests. Inside the trauma room, the girl's heartbeat flickered weakly on the monitor. A surgeon leaned over her small body, voice low and urgent. "She's losing too much blood. We have to open her up." A nurse adjusted the oxygen mask and glanced at the window, where the German Shepherd watched every movement, his eyes tracking each person who stepped near her. The room felt suffocating, the air heavy as seconds dragged on. Nurses and doctors moved quietly, their faces taut, as if silently judging whether trust could be placed in hope. The girl's blood pressure was dropping, and a doctor's warning hung in the air. Outside, a German Shepherd pressed his nose against the glass door, fogging it with each ragged breath. Someone tried to coax him away with a gentle word and an outstretched hand, but he didn't budge. His entire world lay beyond that door. A nurse brought a folded blanket and placed it beside him. Slowly, the dog lowered himself, muscles trembling, resting his head on his paws. His eyes never left the trauma room door. Inside, the monitor's beeping spiked, then slowed. In that moment, everyone felt the fragile balance between hope and despair. Time warped, unbearably slow yet terrifyingly fast. Hours passed. The dog remained still, his gaze fixed. Nurses came and went, their shoes squeaking softly on the polished floor. Each time the trauma room door opened, the German Shepherd's head lifted, hope flickering in his tired eyes. But no news came. A janitor, hands rough and stained with cleaning fluid, knelt beside him. "You did good, boy," he whispered, voice thick. "Real good." Then the girl's parents arrived. The mother's face was pale, her hands trembling as she saw her daughter through the glass, and the dog who refused to leave. She dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her palm against his massive shoulder. Tears streamed down her face as she choked out, "Thank you. Thank you for bringing her home." The dog let out a small, exhausted sigh, closing his eyes for the first time, resting just for a moment. He wasn't alone anymore. As dawn broke through the tall windows, the trauma room door swung open. A doctor emerged, her scrubs stained with blood, her face etched with exhaustion. She pulled down her mask and looked at the parents, then at the dog waiting faithfully. "She's alive," she said, her voice steady. "It was close, but she made it through surgery. She's stable for now." The mother let out a strangled cry, covering her face with both hands. The father sank to his knees, shoulders shaking. But the German Shepherd moved first. His ears lifted, and he pushed himself up on unsteady legs, as if he'd been holding his breath for hours. A nurse opened the door wider, gesturing for the parents to follow. When they stepped inside, the dog pressed forward too. No one stopped him. In the recovery room, the little girl lay pale but breathing, and fur snaking across her arm. The dog walked to her side and rested his head on the edge of her blanket. Her tiny fingers twitched, brushing his fur. Even in her sleep, she knew he was there. In the days that followed, the girl's strength slowly returned. Each morning, nurses found the German Shepherd curled beside her bed, his head where her hand could reach. When she finally opened her eyes, she didn't speak right away. She simply looked at him, her gaze soft and full of a bond no one else could fathom. News crews gathered in the hallways, cameras flashing as the hospital staff shared the story. It spread everywhere, the dog who refused to give up, who carried a child across miles to safety. People sent letters, toys, and blankets, hoping to thank him. Doctors confirmed she'd make a full recovery. Her parents stayed close, but it was the dog who never left, who never tired. Each time she stirred or whimpered in her sleep, he lifted his head, alert and ready to protect her again. On the day of her discharge, the staff lined the hallways to watch. The girl reached out a trembling hand, and the dog pressed close, steady as ever. In that moment, everyone knew they were witnessing something rare, a bond unbreakable, forged in loyalty and love.